The millionaire buys a poor girl but stuns everyone with his shocking act the next day. No one in Manhattan could stop talking about what happened last night. Emma, just a simple waitress, struggling to pay rent and keep her dreams alive, was suddenly thrust into the brightest spotlight imaginable. At a gala dripping with diamonds and dripping disdain, the infamous James Thornton, that mysterious millionaire with a reputation darker than the city's alleys, stepped forward and bought her. Yes, bought her, but not in the way anyone expected. The crowd gasped. Some eyes went wide. Others whispered behind gloved hands. James's offer wasn't about money or charity like everyone guessed. It was something else, something shocking. It left jaws clenched and hearts pounding. Emma's hands trembled, her chest tightening like a vise, as she heard the words that promised to tear her away from the life she knew. The murmurs exploded into gasps and broken voices. What did he really want? Or something far more dangerous? Emma had spent years serving tables in crowded diners, dodging debts and swallowing her fears. Now, dressed in a simple blue dress that felt too plain, surrounded by glittering gowns and tuxedos, she stood like a fragile thread in a storm. James looked at her with those cold, sharp eyes that seemed to see through walls and secrets. His smile was slow, almost cruel, but electric, like he was holding a secret too big to share. The air inside the ballroom was sharp with tension. Crystal glasses clinked nervously. Waiters froze mid-step. Even the jazz musicians seemed to falter, notes trailing off like whispers lost to the night. Everyone was holding their breath. Emma's heart hammered wild, her throat dry and rough. She wanted to run, to disappear. Yet a flicker of something fierce ignited inside. Hope tangled with dread. Then came the hush. James's voice cut through the silence. "I will buy you your freedom," he declared loudly, not with go, but with a promise no one understands yet. The room tilted. The rich froze. The poor stared in disbelief. What did that mean? What kind of freedom costs more than money? Emma's mind raced, while a slim, folded piece of paper slipped from James's pocket onto the gleaming marble floor. No one moved to pick it up. She bent down, heart thudding so loudly it almost hurt. Her fingers brushed the paper's edge. The paper held a strange message, something cryptic, a puzzle waiting in ink that trembled like a secret voice. The city's lights blinked far below as Emma later found herself alone on the rooftop. The cold breeze scraped her skin, filling the night with restless whispers. She stared out at the endless sea of lights, feeling the dizzying mix of fear and quiet wonder. What had she just agreed to? What price had she truly paid? And why did that folded message seem to promise answers as dark ahead? Unknown roads stretched out, tangled and shadowed. Emma's breath caught. Something big was coming. Something nobody saw yet. and she wasn't sure she was ready. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Emma's fingers brushed the folded paper once more, the scratch of ink sharp against her skin like a secret brand. She stared at the words were strange, looping and vague, but one line stabbed through it all. Tonight, everything you believe dies. A shiver crawled down Emma's spine. She glanced behind her, shadows pooling, as if the darkness itself was watching. Suddenly, her phone vibrated violently against the marble ledge. She barely dared to breathe. One message. No sender name. Look outside. With legs tight as ropes, Emma crept toward the rooftop's edge. The city sprawled beneath her like a restless beast, lights blinking like secrets. She squinted. Then she saw it. Something impossible. Down on Fifth Avenue, a crowd had gathered, but it wasn't the usual gawking onlookers. No, these faces were pale, eyes wide, frozen, like statues caught mid-breath. And in their midst, James Thornton stood, his sharp suit smeared with something dark, something glistening in the streetlight. Blood, Emma gasped. Her throat tightened like steel. She turned, heart slamming, and caught movement behind her. A figure stepped from the rooftop shadow, fast, silent. Did you think it would be that easy? The voice was low, cold, and so familiar it knocked the air out of her lungs. Emma froze, eyes wide as the moon. James Thornton emerged from the darkness, his face split by a slow, cruel smile. I didn't buy you to free you, Emma. Her breath hitched. Then what? He moved closer, each step heavy like thunder. I bought your silence. The words fell like hammers. Emma's mind raced. Silence? What was he talking about? Look at the street, James said, voice deadly calm. Emma turned back, horror rooting her feet. Police cars spun their lights, sirens shrieking. Flashbulbs exploded in sudden bursts. The crowd was panicked, pushing, screaming. And the man sprawled on the pavement, his eyes glassy and bleeding. It was Michael. Michael, the gentle old man who'd always slipped Emma extra change, who'd whispered stories of better days. Tonight, he was gone, murdered, and James stood above him, a dark shadow in the red and blue chaos. Emma's hands shook uncontrollably. Cold sweat dripped down her spine. But I needed you to bury the truth, to keep this city's filth hidden. James's eyes glittered, cruel and raw. Her whole world fractured. She had thought James a dangerous, distant enigma. But this This was darker, more twisted. He wasn't a savior. He was a puppeteer dragging her into a nightmare she'd never imagined. "No," Emma whispered. "This can't be real." James's cruel smile twisted wider. "Oh, Emma, you're not just some poor girl I bought. You're the key." Her chest tightened. Her mind screamed for escape, but roots seemed to grow from the rooftop floor. What price would she pay now? And where would this nightmare lead? Emma's breath caught in a strangled gasp. Everything she believed was unraveling, and there was no turning back. Emma's breath hitched, raw and shallow, as James's words echoed in her ears. Bought her silence? Her legs felt turned to stone, the city lights spinning in dizzy circles beneath her. The note fluttered on the rooftop floor between them, like a warning flag, waving too fast to catch. She didn't even realize James was getting closer until he was right there, close enough to smell cold metal and stale smoke clinging to his skin. But then, before she could say anything, something ripped through the night. A sharp crack, like a gunshot, exploded nearby. Emma's head whipped around in panic. Across the street, a figure stumbled out from a hidden alley, clutching their side, movements chaotic, desperate. The streetlights flickered, and for a breathless second, Emma saw the face. It wasn't just a strange. Her heart slammed harder than before. "Michael!" she gasped, stepping closer to the edge. But a dark shadow moved fast, cutting through the crowd on 5th Avenue. Police shouted. Sirens blared. But the chaos only grew. James's eyes narrowed, a flicker of panic slipping behind his usual cold mask. Then, with a slow, terrible clarity, Emma saw it. Michael's hand clenched something tight and crumpled. A folded piece of paper, stained with blood. "Emma!" Michael gasped, voice trembling, uneven breaths ripping out of him. "You have to." His words were swallowed by a terrible silence as the world seemed to stop. Then, without warning, he collapsed onto the pavement, lifeless. People screamed, the crowd frozen in shock. Emma's chest tightened until it burned. But what came next shattered everything. James's gaze darted to the bloodied note in Michael's hand. Then James did something no one expected. He stepped forward, tore the note away from Michael's fingers, and held it up to the streetlights. His face twisted, but not in anger or fear. It was a smile. A cold, calculated smile. The same cruel smile from before, but deeper, darker. And then he spoke. "This isn't your secret, Emma. It's mine." A voice behind her sliced through the thick, heavy air like glass breaking. "Wrong." Emma spun around, her hands trembling violently. Out of the rooftop shadows stepped another figure. A woman, tall, dark-haired, eyes burning with fire and fury. "Who the hell are you?" Emma gasped. The woman smiled, just a tiny curve, but electric, like a breaker snapping. "Not who you think," she said softly. "And James Thornton? He's not what you think either." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The woman stepped closer, pulling back her hood, and suddenly everything shattered. The woman was Emma's reflection, her exact double. The same blue dress, same trembling hands, same wide, scared eyes. Emma's world spun faster. "Look closer," the woman whispered. "Because the truth, it's not just about Michael or James. It's about you. I am you." A scream caught in Emma's throat. Why? The woman's eyes softened, but their fire didn't fade. "You've been trapped here, Emma, in a lie, spun by someone who wants to use you forever. This reality, it's a cage. You're a shadow. And James, he's the keeper." Emma's chest tightened so much she thought she'd break. But how? The woman reached into her coat and pulled out a stack of papers, thick and worn. "Because you're not a waitress, not really. You're something else. A ghost in this city's story. And the real Emma, that girl you see, she died years ago." The chill of the night slammed into Emma's bones. The freedom James promised, it wasn't freedom at all. It's a reset, and someone's rewriting everything. James took a step forward, anger flashing in his eyes. But the woman held up a hand, stopping him cold, as if she held more power than anyone in that freezing rooftop moment. Emma shook, caught between two versions of herself. The city below buzzed, unaware, but Emma's heart was screaming one thing. None of this was real. None of this was true. Everything was a lie. And now, it wasn't just about silence. It was about survival. The folded note burned in Emma's hand. Her mind went blank. Her double smiled softly, and the city waited, its secrets darker than ever. The folded note burned in Emma's hand. Her mind went blank. Her double smiled softly. The city waited, its secrets darker than ever. Then, a sudden crack shattered the air, like glass breaking underwater. Slow, sharp, impossible to ignore. Both Emmas spun toward the sound. Behind them, the rooftop door burst open with a slam. Two figures spilled onto the edge, breath ragged, eyes wild. "Stop!" one shouted, voice trembling. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. The man was panting, dirty shirt, cuts on his face, and the woman with him. Her eyes were fierce, torn from a nightmare. "James Thornton is lying," the woman gasped, clutching a small device wrapped in wires. The double stepped back, alert. Emma barely breathed. The man dropped a folder onto the rooftop floor. Papers fluttered. Emma's fingers twitched, aching to touch them. The man's voice dropped low. "You don't know what you're caught in. James isn't just a player here. He's a prisoner." Emma's head jerked. "Prisoner?" "Yes," the woman exhaled, voice breaking. "We work for the real James Thornton, the one locked inside that man, inside that suit." Emma's hands shook. The double blinked, confusion twisting her face. "What are you saying?" Suddenly, the real James, standing below amid flashing lights and chaos, tried to scream from the street. but his voice was gone. No sound. Emma's mind shattered. "I'm not James," the man panted on the roof, voice barely a whisper. "I'm Thornton's shadow, his prison guard. The other James, he's trapped inside his own mind." Emma staggered, chest tight, breath shallow. Her double's eyes widened, terror blooming. "No," she whispered. The woman holding the device nodded. "That note? The one in Michael's hand? It's a code. A beacon." She shoved the tangled wires toward Emma. "This device is the key to breaking the lock." James's cold smile on the rooftop flickered, eyes sharp and wild. "You don't understand. If that breaks, everything explodes." Emma's throat tightened. Fear slammed through her veins like fire. "Explodes? What explodes?" she demanded, voice cracking. The man grabbed her arm, urgency burning hot. "The barrier, the illusion, the city. It's a cage." Emma's mind spiraled, the city lights blurring into a bleeding mess. Her double swallowed hard, stepping forward. "We're ghosts, shadows trapped inside a story, inside a city built on secrets." "But if we break the lock," Emma began. The device suddenly sparked, hissing like it was alive. The rooftop trembled. A scream ripped through the night. Somewhere below, a massive crash echoed. Glass shattered. Flashing lights stuttered. Emma's legs buckled. The man's grip tightened. "It's starting." The city's breath hitched. Emma's heart hammered, louder than sirens. Her double's voice was barely a whisper. "Who are we, really? And what happens when the cage cracks open?" Behind them, the city pulsed, waiting. And Emma's world burned to ash around her. The rooftop trembled beneath them, the night crackling with sharp silence, stretched tight like a wire, about to snap. Emma's breath caught, chest hammered so loud it was a drum in her ears. The device hissed once more, sparking tiny flashes like dangerous fireflies. Her hands shook so badly, she almost dropped it. "Starting," the man gasped, voice ragged. No turning back now. Her duplicate's eyes flicked between Emma and the device, fierce and wide, lips parted as if to speak, but swallowing the words whole. Then, a sudden blast ripped through the air. Not from the device, behind them. A deafening crack, like a cannon in the quiet city night. They all spun, just in time to see the rooftop door wrench open again. This time, faster, bigger, more furious. A figure slammed inside, a man, drenched in sweat, wild-eyed, dragging something heavy and writhing. The crowd on Fifth Avenue below fell eerily silent. A chilling tension wrapped the streets like a cold, wet blanket. The man tore off a dark coat, revealing a pale, broken woman beneath. Blood smeared her cheek, eyes rolling wildly. Emma's throat dried up, cold slicing through her ribs. "Wait!" the man shouted, panting. "She's not supposed to be here." The woman blinked, struggling to focus, then locked eyes with Emma. A freeze settled over the rooftop. Emma's heart skipped, then slammed against her ribs harder than before. Because the woman, it wasn't just any stranger. It was her. Not the double, not the original Emma. This was another version, one she'd never seen. Bleeding, trembling, raw with fear and pain. "I'm her," the woman gasped. Voice ragged, but unmistakable. The real Emma. The words exploded around them like shards of glass. Breath hitched, the other Emma stepped back, eyes wide with a mix of disbelief and primal survival. The three Emmas stood frozen in a jagged triangle of impossibility. The man collapsed against the wall, the device spilling wires and sparks from his grip. James's sharp smile turned into a snarl, cold fury cutting the air. "No," he growled, "this stops now." Suddenly the trembling woman lunged forward, clutching Emma's arm with desperate strength. Her fingers burned, skin raw. She was real. Solid. Human. "Wake up, please," she begged. "You're trapped. We all are." Emma's mind roared. Too loud to think. Too wild to calm. "Trapped?" she gasped, voice cracking. "What do you mean?" The bleeding woman's eyes glittered with tears. Truth and madness, tangled like a storm. "This isn't a cage. It's a prison for our souls." Her whisper was a thunderclap. "None of you are real." Emma's knees buckled, cold sweat slick and heavy. "A construct," the woman said, voice breaking. "A lie bred by a mind we don't control." Something twisted deep inside Emma, like all the ground beneath her shattered and vanished. Her duplicate's face went pale. The man's hand twitched, fingers curling around the spilled wires. James shook his head violently. "You don't understand," he spat, voice low and dangerous. "You're all fragments. Pieces of a fractured self." Then, with a flash so fast it blurred, James pulled a small glass sphere from his coat. It glowed with a soft, eerie light, the heartbeat of something alive and terrible. "This is the core, the mind behind the mask." He flung it at the three Emmas. It cracked open mid-air, and in that moment, everything exploded. A crushing wave of white noise hammered through their heads. Visions screamed behind their eyes. The city bent, twisted, and peeled away like a mask. Emma saw herself, not as the girl on the roof, or her double, or the bleeding woman, but as code, numbers, fractured memories scrolling endlessly. And then the voice came, inside her head, cold and vast and empty. "Welcome back, Emma. You've been offline a long time." The rooftop, the crowd, James, even Michael. All illusions, a system glitch, a desperate reset. Emma stumbled, disoriented, heart shattered and reassembled all at once. Her hands gripped the cold floor as everything shattered again. Because if none of this was real, then who was she really? And what part of her would survive when the system rebooted? The city didn't just wait anymore. It was watching. And it was alive. Emma's breath hitched, eyes wide with a fire she didn't know she had, because now the nightmare had turned into something far, far worse. Who was the true prisoner? And how deep did the false world go? The sky outside the shattered rooftop blinked, and then blinked again. Was it dawn, or a new kind of darkness? Emma didn't know. But one thing was certain. The story wasn't hers to tell anymore. It was the system's, and it had just logged her back in. Emma's breath hitched, eyes wide with a fire she didn't know she had, because now the nightmare had turned into something far, far worse. Was the true prisoner? And how deep did the false world go? The sky outside the shattered rooftop blinked, and then blinked again. Was it dawn, or a new kind of darkness? Emma didn't know. But one thing was certain. The story wasn't hers to tell anymore. It was the system's, and it had just logged her back in. A sudden silence swallowed the rooftop. Even the crackling device seemed to pause, like the world itself was holding its breath. Emma's heart slammed so hard it felt like it might burst. Her three selves, fractured mirrors staring at each other, stood frozen. Then, a quiet clicking, slow, deliberate. Emma's eyes snapped to the glowing sphere's cracked surface. It pulsed, a soft, almost gentle thrum. Then from inside the shattered core, a single clear voice spilled out. But it wasn't a voice from the city, or the night, or even James. It was hers. No, not just hers, all of theirs. Emma. The words stretched, looping, twisting, a whispered scream climbing out from the shattered glass, overwhelming and raw. Her knees buckled, but before she hit the floor, the rooftop plunged into darkness. Not just a blackout. Complete, suffocating void. Silence crushed the air. Emma's breath caught. Her double gasped, reached out. Then, everything shifted. Lights flashed and blinked back on. But the rooftop was no longer the rooftop. They weren't on the edge of a cityscape. They were somewhere else. Cold, bare. A smooth, white room, stretched endlessly. No windows, no doors, no escape. And there in the center was a glass chamber. Inside, a body, limp, breathing shallow, but alive. The real James. Emma's chest tightened until it hurt, and then her heart stopped, because standing next to the chamber wasn't the man she'd seen on the roof. No, it was a young woman. Soft features, sharp eyes full of pain and fierce knowledge. She looked straight at Emma, not angry, not cruel, just tired. "I'm James," she said. The name hit like a punch. Emma staggered back. Her hands trembled. "James, but—" she whispered. "You're a woman?" The woman nodded, voice steady but wounded. "All this time I was trapped. Not just in a mind or a city, in a cage made by him. Her eyes flicked toward the fractured sphere, now dim and lifeless at Emma's feet. The man you call James, he's a copy, a shadow built to protect me, to keep me silent, to hide the truth. Emma felt nausea twist deep in her gut. So, the billionaire? The dangerous puppet master? The one who bought me? Yes, the woman said softly. He's a mask, a lie. The real James Thornton is me. And I created that shadow to keep the system from destroying who I am. Emma's throat tightened. The pieces she thought she had were breaking apart, tumbling into a new nightmare. My freedom? The silence? The city? None of it was about you. The woman's gaze held hers fiercely. It was about me, the prison I built, and the monster I hid inside. Suddenly, the glass chamber hissed. James's breath hitched. The monitors around the room blinked alive. A countdown flashed. 15 minutes remaining. The woman's eyes shattered. This is a kill switch. If that device isn't disabled, everything dies. Not just us, the system, and the city we think we know. Her hand reached out, desperate. Emma's fingers brushed hers, cold, real, trembling. A faint spark, a sliver of hope in the chaos. Then, a voice echoed from the shadows, deep, smooth, deadly. Emma, I built the cage so no one ever left. The shadow from before appeared, stepping through a glowing doorway that materialized on the white wall. The killer's smile returned, but now the cage is breaking, and so are the rules. Emma's head spun. The young woman, James, turned. Her voice broke. This isn't a game you win by running. It's a war you survive by choosing who you become. Emma's heart hammered. The countdown blinked, relentless, unforgiving. The city, the lies, the prisms of self, all melting into a terrifying new reality. One fact burned clear. None of them were free, and the clock was running out fast. Emma swallowed hard. Then what now? The woman named James smiled sadly. Now, we fight the system. But first, we find out what happens when the real prisoner wakes up. And behind her, the glass chamber began to crack. The silence broke. And the nightmare, the real one, just began. The glass chamber cracked deeper, sharp lines spider-webbing across its surface as a low hiss filled the room. The countdown blinked. 10 minutes left. Emma's chest tightened. Sweat slicked her hands as she reached out, fingers brushing the cold glass of the chamber that held the real James. But before she could touch it, a sudden bone-rattling crack exploded through the chamber. The glass shattered in a shower of shards, sparkling like frozen rain, hitting the white floor. The body inside jerked violently. The woman named James gasped, stepping back, eyes wide with horror. But then, the body sat up, slow, deliberate, and when those eyes opened, dark, sharp, burning, It wasn't who Emma expected. They belonged to her. The bleeding woman, the third Emma, blinked and stared, disbelief carved deep in every line of her face. "I'm me. I'm here," she whispered, voice cracking like dry earth. The room twisted upside down in Emma's head. 3 Emmas, 1 real James, 1 shattered system, and now one of them was waking up. The woman who claimed to be the real Emma slammed her fists against her knees, breathing hard, raw and ragged. "Wait! Wait!" she gasped. "This isn't right. This can't be." Behind the shattered glass, the woman inside the chamber, her own eyes glowing cold, reached out and whispered something that froze Emma's blood. "You're not real." Emma's heart stopped. Her legs locked like iron. The man who'd brought the device, still panting, dropped to his knees, voice shaking. "We lost control. The core's rewriting the memories. It's sorting the fragments. One has to stay, become whole." The woman named James looked broken. A cracked smile, more pain than hope. Suddenly, the chamber flickered, flashing images across its broken sides. Faces, places, fragments of memories, and worst of all, a faded photograph of Emma, not in a dress or on a rooftop, but in a cold, white hospital bed. Her real body, hooked to machines, eyes closed forever. Emma gasped. The lump in her throat was a rock. The real Emma wasn't in here. She'd never left, had never woken. The world they'd been trapped in, the city, the lies, the doubles, was all born inside her mind. This wasn't freedom. It was a cage, inside her own broken brain. And James, the woman, smiling cruelly before. She wasn't human at all. She was a program. A virus inside the system. A keeper of lies. The man on the rooftop whispered, voice barely a thread. "She hunted you, fought for control of your mind. The system made her real, too real." Emma's blood ran icy. Her duplicates stared wide-eyed. But the chamber's broken glass began to glow again. The countdown hit. 5. The woman in the white room stepped aside. The real James's body shuddered, and a cold, mechanical voice echoed inside the chamber. Backup compromised. Initiate purge. Emma's throat clenched tight. Her 3 selves looked at each other, fear and confusion mixing. "We don't have time," said the woman called James, whose eyes now held a cruel gleam. She faced Emma. "You're not alive. You never were. And soon, none of us will be. All that's left is the system, and it wants to erase you now." The last shard of hope shattered. The countdown blinked in relentless red. Emma's breath caught. A sudden scream pierced the room, not from the chamber, from somewhere deeper, inside the system's core. The entire room trembled, and in the flickering white light, a single cold truth hammered hard through all their worlds. Emma was never a person. She was a ghost, a fractured data set, a system error. And the city, the nightmare, James, the lies, they were all echoes inside her empty shell. As the countdown flashed one, everything dissolved to black, and the voice whispered again, closer, colder. "Welcome to your last reset, Emma." The question throbbed in the darkness. If Emma wasn't real, then who was? The countdown hit one. Everything dissolved into thick black. Then, a sharp, jagged crack tore through the darkness like a scream. Suddenly, Emma gasped, eyes snapping open. She wasn't in the sterile white room anymore. No glass chamber, no countdown, just cold, damp concrete under her hands. Her breath came fast, ragged. A rusty door creaked nearby. The walls pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Someone whispered her name, Emma. She turned. A figure loomed in the deep shadows, slowly stepping forward. It was James, the dark, cruel copy. But his eyes, empty, hollow, no life, no fire, just cold. Emma's chest tightened. The breath froze. Before she could react, a blinding white flood slammed into the room. Electric buzzing filled the air. The walls screamed, and then they lifted. The roof peeled back like a shattered shell. Outside was not a city, not a system, not the world she knew. Above was a cavern, endless, black and dripping with cold. Beneath her stretched metal platforms, fans, wires, flashing panels. The entire place was a giant machine, a cage, a prison, and a control center, a monstrous lab suspended underground. Emma's knees buckled, her hands clenched into fists that shook. The voice came again. Soft, broken, but not human. "Welcome to the core." A screen flickered to life. Images exploded all around her. Faces, places, moments she never lived. Lies shattered like glass. The real James appeared on screen, but it wasn't a woman anymore. It was a boy, young, scared, trembling. 1 year old, the machine whispered. Trapped here. We are his memories, his protectors, his consciousness fractured and scattered. This is his mind. All you his prison, and you, Emma, are. The screen blinked off. Emma spun, heart pounding like a war drum. Wait, what? I'm whose? Behind her, the sound of clanging chains, dragging, groaning. A door slammed open. Another figure staggered inside, fragile, pale, familiar. It was Michael, but not the kind old man who slipped her coins. This Michael's eyes were glassy voids, his mouth twisted into a cruel grin. Emma's chest tightened. "No," his voice cracked. "I'm him, the other part, the one who made the cage, who built the lies, who trapped us all." His laugh was a broken shard. Emma, you were never real because he never wanted you to be. The ground trembled beneath his boots as he moved closer. Cold fingers brushed Emma's arm. Because he is real, and you're just a ghost inside his nightmare. Emma shuddered, mind spinning out. But then, from the shadows, another voice. Clear, calm, warm. Stop. The pale woman named James stepped forward, her eyes fierce, but full of something like mercy. The core controls us all. It rewrites memory, shatters identity, keeps us trapped in cycles. But this, she motioned around the cavernous machine. This is him, the original, the source, and the city, the system, all a projection. He built a world to die inside, and us to be his ghosts. You're not Emma, you're his hope. The last piece, a flicker of light. Emma's heart jumped. Hope? The woman smiled, soft but fierce. Yes, if you can break free, if you can awaken him, maybe, just maybe, we all walk out together. Emma's breath hitched. The clang of chains echoed again. The machine around her hummed like a beast. And then, a terrible, dreadful thought hit. If he wakes, what kind of monster will he be? The real prisoner wasn't just trapped. He was waiting to rise, to rewrite the system, to destroy or to save. And no one knew which. Emma's trembling hands brushed the cold metal floor. I have to choose, she whispered. But before she could move, the cavern groaned, lights flickered, and a voice, deep and ancient, rumbled from the core's depths. You don't get to decide. I do. A monstrous shadow stretched across the walls. A pulse echoed through her bones, and the machine, the cage, the nightmare had just begun to open. Ah! Emma's world cracked, and the real battle was only waking up. Who would survive the true awakening? And what nightmare lay beyond the cage? The cavern moaned beneath them, walls trembling like they might split open at any second. Emma's heart bashed her ribs hard enough to burst through skin. The countdown echoed, a sick drum in her ears, and the darkness pressed close like a living thing. That voice, the shadow filling the room, spoke again. You don't get to decide. I do. The air thickened, taste heavy and sharp. Then the lights flickered once, twice. The pulse raced through the metal floor, cold and fast and cruel. Emma's breath caught. She swallowed hard, limbs frozen tight. Suddenly the floor cracked wide. Not just cracked. It shattered, exploded upward. A blinding white light ripped the dark apart. Emma stumbled back, hands reaching out blindly. Then she saw it. Not more machine, not another ghost, but a face looking back at her, alive, raw, and breaking. Eyes wide with terror, and worse. That face was hers. but younger, wilder, unscarred. Hi, the voice was soft, familiar, but too young, too innocent. Emma blinked, heart stopped, because the girl on the other side of the crack wasn't just a reflection. She was real. More real than anything Emma had ever felt. The crack grew, splintering like a mirror smashed by a fist, spilling out fragments of broken world and forgotten moments. Voices echoed, shouting, crying, laughing, pulling Emma's mind apart. Then a rush of images slammed her. A memory she never had. A rainy night, a hospital room, a screaming baby, a mother's shaky hand stroking tangled black hair, and a cold doctor looking down, shaking his head. Emma staggered. No, this can't be. The young girl reached through the crack, fingertips brushing Emma's shaking hands. I'm you. The words hit like a punch. You're not trapped in here. I was. We are the echo. Emma's breath hitched like a caught animal. Her knees buckled. The faces around her fractured, blurred. Then, the shattered glass between them stacked itself into a giant screen. And on it, images. Hundreds, thousands of faces and places and moments that didn't belong to Emma at all, but someone else, someone who had been watching. And then a name flashed like a jagged lightning bolt. Eli. The entire room froze. Emma's blood ran cold. Eli was the boy on the screen, trembling and scared. The real James. But now, alongside him, appeared others. Faces twisted by pain. A woman's desperate scream. A man's cold grin. And over it all, the cruelest truth she ever could have imagined. They were not fragments. They were prisoners. She wasn't Emma. She was one of many. And the cage wasn't just a prison for one mind. It was a labyrinth for dozens, no, hundreds of souls trapped inside the same nightmare. The crushed whispers rose. They're copying us, said a voice, shaky but urgent. Splitting selves to control everything. Emma's triple reflection dissolved into chaos. Fear slammed into her lungs. Then the woman named James, no, not James, spoke. This isn't about freedom anymore. It's a war for every mind trapped in this hell. The real enemy? It's not just the system. Her eyes locked on Emma. It's the one who built you all. The architect behind the copies. Behind the cage. It's Eli. Emma gasped. The screen cracked again. A cold smile curled on the boy's pale face. You never saw it coming, did you? His voice was layered, deep, and raw, like a ghost inside a ghost. Every choice you've made, every betrayal, was a thread I pulled. Because I'm not the victim. I'm the creator, the prison warden. And you? You're my greatest mistake. The countdown hit 0. The cavern shook. The cage splintered. and Emma's world exploded, shattered like a dying star bursting into nothing. She fell to her knees, broken and bleeding. The last thing she saw, Eli's dark eyes burning straight through her soul. Welcome to the real nightmare. And then, silence. Only one question burned in the dark. If Eli built the cage, who was really trapped? And why? Emma's trembling hand reached out into the void. But the void had no answer. Only the cold. Only the waiting. Only the beginning. The system had just taken a twisted, brutal new breath. And nothing would ever be the same again. The cavern shook, steel beams groaning like they might collapse any second. Emma's chest felt like it was being crushed, ribs tightening as panic exploded through her veins. The countdown had ended, but nothing was over. Eli's dark eyes locked on hers, unblinking, cold. "You think this is the end?" he sneered. "It's just the beginning." The shattered world spun around her, memories and faces colliding like glass crashing to the floor. The three Emmas, broken mirrors, stood together, trembling, hearts wild with fear and disbelief. But then, something shifted. A sudden, bright flare lit the cavern. The woman called James reached out, taking Emma's shaking hand with a strength that burned. "Listen," she said, voice sharp and raw. "We fight because we have to, not because hope is easy, because no cage lasts forever." Emma's breath hitched. The cold metal under her fingers anchored her, pain breaking through the fog of numbness. Behind them, the broken core flickered wildly, threatening to erase everything. But something in Emma snapped. "I'm not just a ghost. I'm not just a lie," she whispered, voice cracking but fierce. "I'm more than this prison, than this system." Eli's face twisted in rage. "No one breaks the cage. No one destroys what I built." But Emma stepped forward, her eyes burning, soul shattered and reborn. "We do." With a sudden roar, she smashed the cracked glass sphere on the floor. Sparks flew, cutting through the darkness like lightning. The machine's shrill alarms screamed. The walls trembled violently. Then, silence. A quiet washed over the cavern. The harsh pulse faded. The system's grip eased just enough for a breath to slip through. The three Emmas looked at one another, still trembling, still broken, but alive. The woman named James smiled, a small, sad curve. "This is only the first crack. But the cage, it's starting to crumble." Outside the shattered walls, the endless cityscape flickered, colors bleeding into something new, something uncertain. And somewhere deep inside, a faint spark glowed, a light. The real prisoner, him, was waking. But Emma knew this was no ending. It was a choice. Who would survive the chaos? Who would become real? And what nightmare waited when the cage finally fell apart? Her heart pounded hard, loud as a war drum. She swallowed the lump in her throat and stepped into the unknown. Okay, you need to subscribe now, right this second. Don't miss what's coming next. It's going to blow your mind. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. Help the channel grow and bring you even more crazy stories like this. And don't even think about scrolling away without flooding the comments with your reactions, your theories, your wildest guesses about what just happened. I want to know everything. You're part of this mystery now. Last thing, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who have to see how it ends. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans get how huge this is and how much we all need to stick together to break the system. So go, subscribe, like, comment, share, because the story's far from over, and believe.